Thank you and welcome to the Newberg School District 29J Board of Directors meeting for April 8th, 2025. I'm very excited. We have a special guest here with us tonight. Would you like to introduce yourself? Say your name.
Kira.
Okay. Kira is a special guest from Dundee Elementary School, and she won a T-shirt contest that was put on by Juliet's House this year in recognition of April's Child Abuse Prevention Month. And we are all wearing this fabulous T-shirt design. So we asked Kira to come and be recognized by the board, but also to be a part of the board while we read a proclamation regarding child abuse prevention. So each board member is going to read a portion of the proclamation. Oh, sorry, I got too excited. I forgot the flag salute. Thank you. We're going to start with the flag salute. Okay, now we can do the fun stuff. Okay, so I've given each of the board members, we have a portion of the proclamation, and I will start, and then Director Hayden will take over after that. The Newberg School District 29J Board of Directors, in the matter of a resolution in Newberg, Oregon, support of Child Abuse Prevention Month, April 2025, resolution number 2025-14, proclamation.
Whereas child abuse is one of our nation's most serious public health problems, with scientific studies documenting the link between the abuse of children and a wide range of medical, emotional, psychological, and behavioral disorders. And
Whereas it is estimated that 1 in 4 children will suffer significant abuse before the age of 18. And in fiscal year 2023, over 164,000 contacts were made to the Oregon Child Abuse Hotline. A total of 45,208 received reports were assigned for CPS assessment, and of all completed CPS assessments, 7,861 were founded for abuse, involving 11,191 victims. And
whereas the physical, emotional, mental, and fiscal impact of abuse falls on children of all ages and abilities who come from all economic, racial, and social backgrounds, and these crimes affect many more family members, friends, neighbors, and communities. And
whereas effective child abuse prevention efforts succeed because of partnerships created among state and local government agencies, schools, diverse community groups, civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community, while recognizing that feeling connected to community can be a protective factor against child abuse. And
whereas Newberg School District is dedicated to stopping child abuse, supporting survivors and their non-offending families, and working to prevent it through education, advocacy, and accessible family resources. And
whereas each of us has a role to play in addressing the problem of child abuse by learning how to prevent, recognize, and report it, as well as supporting prevention, education, and empowerment programs for children and youth.
Therefore, we, the Newberg School District Board of Directors, do hereby proclaim April 2025 to be Child Abuse Prevention Month in Newberg, Oregon. We reaffirm Newberg School District's commitment to creating a safer, healthier, and more thriving community for our children by taking proactive steps to help prevent child abuse. These include promoting awareness and encouraging citizens to learn about the signs of child abuse and how to report suspected cases to the appropriate authorities. Investing in prevention by supporting programs and initiatives that provide family resources, parenting education, and early intervention services to at-risk families. Community involvement, participating in local events and promoting Wear Blue on Fridays each week in April to show solidarity in preventing child abuse. Strengthening partnerships and collaborating with schools, local businesses, healthcare providers, and community organizations to create a united front against child abuse. Empowering action, providing free resources and training for citizens on recognizing and addressing child abuse through Juliet's House and similar organizations. Community members can learn more at julietshouse.org. Together, let us protect every child in our community and ensure their well-being by fostering a culture of safety, compassion, and accountability. Signed this date, April 8, 2025. Okay. So at this point, we need a motion.
I move that the Newberg School District 29 Board of Directors adopt resolution number 2025-14.
Second.
Any further questions? If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Design, and there's a little pinwheel in there, because of course pinwheels are our thing. Okay, we'll start with the board and then we can get your family a picture. Okay, anything to review for the agenda, additions or deletions? Hearing none, let's move on to the consent agenda. Wow, look at all those donations. So Kiwanis Club, $500 to Joanne Austin Elementary Garden Club. That's nice. Edwards Volunteer Organization received $3,139 for gym climbing setup equipment. Newberg Charitable Organization donated $2,000 to the Newberg High School Orchestra. Todd Lovell donated $1,000 to NHS Track and Field for javelins. Oh, nice. And Walling Construction, 2,500 to the NHS trap team. That's a lot of donations.
I move that the Newberg School District Board of Directors approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Any further questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. This is now the time for public forum. Anybody care to have a comment, speak, come up, say anything exciting? Margaret Lund, no? Your mother seems to think you do. Okay. Moving on. Jillian, would you like to come up and talk with us about integrated programs?
Our integrated programs. Is it on? Thanks. Again, I'm presenting the plan to you tonight for our 2025-27 integrated programs. Give you a little background about these programs and then also talk about some of our expenditures and some of the activities that we had engaged in. I feel like this is really far away. Okay. So the purpose of our presentation tonight is to share what we learned about our community engagement, to discuss how our priorities or our plan was developed, and then presenting to you tonight the plan with an opportunity for community engagement at our next school board meeting. So I'll be seeking approval at the next board meeting, just presenting tonight to introduce the plan for future board approval. So our integrated programs and planning kind of encompasses 6 different major programs. ODE has weaved these together in conjunction with our legislature and some of our Oregon laws. And so how we fund programs has morphed over the last few years. Our high school success program, the student investment account, and the early indicator and intervention systems, and what's missing on here is early literacy as well, are all grants that we receive funding for to support programs within our school district. But in addition to those grant funds, part of the programming and planning supports continuous improvement planning, career and technical education, and then Everyday Matters, which is an attendance initiative to support students' access to school. So all of these programs are wrapped up into one sort of central funding stream. I present on this each year annually to the board. We discuss the budgets, and then every 2 years we have a new application cycle. So how this kind of how it works is we plan for 4 years and then update the plan every 2. So tonight we'll be talking kind of about what we heard from our community, potential changes or updates to our plan, and where we're going from here. All of the plans in combination are kind of, think about it as a braid. They're braided together to support well-rounded education for students to access school, providing students what they need, equity advanced, an opportunity to engage our community in a really purposeful manner to receive feedback about our programmings and how it's working for students, and then supporting our strengthened systems and capacity. So really being able to align everything so that it's working together. For community engagement, we had a lot of engagement this year and then over the last couple of years. We've gone through digital engagement through surveys like the Youth Truth or Thought Exchange. And then we also did in-person listening sessions. And one thing that we learned is that the best way to listen to our community is going to building level activities. We had a lot of engagement when we were accessing feedback and asking questions around building level activities. When we held district level community engagement sessions, they were not as well attended. So really focusing on activities that schools are already implementing to be able to utilize those to gather feedback with different populations within our community. We also utilized our student focal groups. That was a multi-year feedback experience. So different clubs that are at both the middle school and the high school, we asked questions and did some listening session and empathy interviews with. And then our community listening sessions, as I had mentioned, some of our really notable feedback was from our Thought Exchange program. It received over 9,000 ratings from our community. So that's a pretty outstanding response. And I wanted to highlight that we got a lot of engagement around our priorities in our district and the programs. So our prior goals that we had set in the past, which currently are the goals that we're operating under for our programs, is increasing student attendance to 95%, increasing overall student graduation to 95% for all demographic groups, ensuring CTE access to all students desiring to participate in CTE, so reducing any potential barriers there, improving student performance and academic support in both math as measured by the Smarter Balance Assessment from 38.8 to 90%. And then also in the ELA assessment from 50.5 to 90%. Reduce the student to staff ratio across the district programs and creating robust and sustainable teaching and learning environments for all staff and students. So before I go into the allocations, I'm going forward. I want to go back a little bit. Nathan, on this slide, could you hit this link? We have to set what is called longitudinal performance growth targets for ODE. And I really want to show you our spreadsheet on what we have to submit because it really captures how we're doing the best. So we have multiple goals that we have to set. 4-year cohort graduation rates, 5-year cohort graduation rates, 9th grade on track, 3rd grade English language proficiency goals. And then can you scroll down a little bit, Nathan? Regular attenders. So again, this is students attending school every day, are captured in here. And so what I really want to show you, Nathan, can you scroll over a little bit, like to the right? You can see that we've got data in here year over year, and then pause here. And then can you scroll up a little bit more so we can get back to the top? Thank you. So we had set our goals, and so the goals that I just read to you are captured in that 2027, 28 target of where we wanted to be. As we go through our application process this year with ODE, we set new goals for the next 2 years. So the goals that you see here and then I know there's a lot of data on here, but the goals that you see here are goals that we have already set. And so we will be making new goals. But what I wanted to highlight is how close we were to making our goals. So for the 4-year cohort graduation rate, the variance between 0.5% to 1.1 or 1.5% in terms of meeting that goal. The 5-year cohort rate, the variance was 0.8 to 2.5%. So missed the target there just by a couple of percentage points. But what we're really excited about is our 9th grade on track goal. And that's in this green section of the cells there. 11.1% means we closed the gap for our students who experience struggle versus the average student at Newberg High School by 11%. I can't tell you how many times the state has contacted Ms. Arian at the high school and then just other opportunities with ODE engagement to say, what are you doing? Because 11% is a pretty huge gap closure and it's not often seen. So a lot of the work that's happening around 9th grade on track and that success that our students are experiencing at the high school is really funded by all of these grants. So I just wanted to point out, like, that's one of the biggest wins so far that we've seen in engaging with the student investment account and high school success. And then you'll see if we scroll down, Nathan, could you scroll down a little bit more? Third grade English language arts proficiency, we closed the gap by 6%. So again, these are students who historically experience struggle as compared to your average student in third grade. So that's really great growth in terms of the support that we're being able to provide our students in early literacy. And then our regular attendance data also improved. So for all students, it increased 4%, and then we closed the gap by 3.2%. So these are like really big pieces that is part of our story that we don't often tell. Like, we're doing really great here. We have a lot more work to do because, as you can see, like, nobody's going to be satisfied with 50%, or some of the other are on track to graduation is a bit higher, as well as the graduation itself. But our goals are all around 90 to 95%. And I remember when my colleague Holly and another colleague we had initially sent these goals, ODE told us they were too high and that we needed to adjust them because they didn't want to have to do an intervention for a district that didn't meet their high goals. And so I guess I just want to leave that there because we do have really high goals and we're making dramatic growth towards them. And so I'm really excited to share that because this represents the work that all of our teachers are doing in the classroom and all of our instructional assistants. I know we've had a lot going on in our district, but I think this is a moment to really acknowledge the work that's been done over the last few years and the impact it's having on students. Okay, Nathan, could you transition back to the slides? Thank you. I know I kind of went through that fast. I wonder, should I pause for questions here or wait until the end?
I was just going to ask, I assume that this can be sent out so we can actually read it a little better.
Yes, so
Pretty small on the
the
screen.
slides and the application and the budget will all be posted on our website and available for review.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Again, this is just summarizing what our initial goals were. And then moving through to, so where does that leave us? Moving into next year, our student success account has 4,133,000. Sorry, I'm really tired. You can read it, and I'm missing a comment in there. I apologize. $4,133,433.61. And the majority of the work is going around improving student health and safety and well-rounded education. Going to kind of give a little overview before I get into the nitty-gritty again. Our high school success allocation, here again, it's supporting dropout prevention for students. This includes activities like Freshman Rising, after-school homework club, summer school for our high school students, CTE programming, post-secondary success, dropout prevention, curriculum materials. So it's a really heavy funder of a lot of the programs that we've been able to add to the high school to support our students, particularly those that are at risk for not graduating. No, I missed another date. I apologize on that. Our system software purchases. So the early intervention grant is early indicator interventions, and this is used for system software purchases. So we are going to be working on our data systems and how we analyze data and work with data. And so the funds here in this grant will go towards that system software purchase. Okay, so the last little bit of this, actually, it looks like Nathan, there's maybe need to refresh because there's a link missing. Sorry about that. Whoops. Yep, and then click that one. Okay, so on this, again, all of it will be posted online. This summarizes our big pockets in our budget. So a lot of our funding goes direct towards student support in terms of school counselors, our special education and behavioral health coordinator. We have our licensed mental health therapists in our student investment account. as well as our district math TOSA and our English language development TOSA, our ELD specialists, English language development specialists, our reading specialists, alternative high school at-risk student support, along with some speech support. We have some educational assistance in this accounts. Nathan, could you scroll down, please? Yeah, just keep going. Yep. Teaching and learning coordinator benefits. We have a data specialist, and then our 2 SROs are also funded by SIA. So that's kind of the SIA funding or the overall categories for where our dollars are going. And then as we move into the high school success grant, we fund our credit recovery for our students, our CTE classes. We have at-risk and dropout prevention staff supports, as well as post-secondary success coordinator. And then again, we run our after-school homework support club there, our summer school programs, and then some climate and culture support for students. We also fund a staff member from the school-based health center through our high school success grant, along with some subs. And as we move further down, the early intervention software, you'll be able to see there again, that's the system software for data. And then this last little part is new. So this year, moving into the biennium, ODE braided the early literacy grant together with these. And so the early literacy grant funds activities for students in kindergarten through 3rd grade. So these are going to be our reading specialists. And the predominant work that we do here is high dosage tutoring, along with some professional development and support for our classroom teachers, and then some summer school activities. So that's the bulk of our early literacy funds. And that's coming in right around $300,000 for next year from the ODE budget. And so the last little bits in here we have is the assistant principal at one of our elementaries and our welcome center supervisor. And so with our grant funding, all of our dollars are based off the governor's budget, and we have this as our kind of focal point. And then we also have another budget called tiered planning. So if we get more money than expected, we've got activities ready to go. And some of those activities look like additional support in reading, educational assistance, particularly supports in SIA. We expect that account to go up a bit. And then along with our early literacy grant, we expect that one to go up a bit. And so that's kind of where our focuses are. So that kind of concludes where our application is at in terms of our priorities and funding for next year. I should note that all of our activities have stayed very consistent since the Student Success Act was started and we started receiving grant funding. As you may have noticed, most of our funding is in staffing. So we don't have large program changes. And I think that's one thing that we really heard from the community in terms of their feedback was the programs that we had for students who might need additional supports, but then also enhancements for students who are ready to accelerate. We also heard feedback around our language acquisition and special education programs, a lot of conversation just around supporting the whole student in general. So there was some conversation about mental health and school counselors, reduction in class size. I would say everything that we've grappled with in the last couple of years is the feedback that we've gotten from the community. And I'm just really excited that that feedback mirrors what our investments are in these accounts, because what the community is asking for is what we're funding here. And so that's really exciting to see that being a consistent request year over year, but that the funding really does match the need that we're experiencing. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take those. And then again, at the next school board meeting, I'll be here for follow-up questions. And next board meeting, I will be seeking a motion to approve the application.
So we'll
I
have
have-
an opportunity.
Actually, I have one.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you, Jillian. It's good to see this kind of laid out the way it is. Can you talk a little bit about who our focal student groups are?
Sure. So we kind of have a couple of really larger populations. So we have our students who might be experiencing disabilities. We have our students acquiring language. We connected with our LGBTQ 2SIA plus groups. We have a few students that are experiencing incarceration and have transition between that. This year, I think we only had one student that would fall into the teen parent group, but I would say like our largest groups are our students of color, our students acquiring languages, and then our students experiencing diverse needs, either in special education with 504s or behavior mental health supports. So I would say like that's kind of the focal population that we focused on, along with our students not meeting grade level standards. So our students experiencing academic struggle, whether that's in reading or math. And so I would say like our focal populations kind of run the gamut of all the needs of the students. But specifically, some of those go a little bit deeper.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure we'll all look at the slides in preparation for next meeting. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
I have one quick question that's not related to this, but you were mentioning the feedback, and I know that was an effort that I don't know if it's going to be points to you or to you, Dave. But I know that was one of the big things you were working on as you were coming on board, is getting some community feedback. Is there a place or a report that's gonna like lay that out where we can look into it more and kind of look at the 9,000 comments or likes or whatever it was that you mentioned? That
Jillian's actually presented on it in.
I did it too. Don't worry.
I know. Jillian's actually reported on that in an earlier board meeting, but we'll also push out. I mean, I think it'd be good just for us to push up onto the website kind of some materials around that kind of push out that information so folks can look at it and see it. So yeah, we can follow up on that.
Okay. Yeah, I do remember some.
Yeah.
I just doesn't sound like it was to the extent of it, maybe all the factors that were listed here. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Allen?
So the policy committee met a couple times last week, and we have a few policies that are in their first readings in front of you. But we did think it might be a good idea to kind of go over our overall process and what we're doing. So this year for our policy committee, we asked OSBA to do a policy analysis of all of our policies. And they ID'd missing policies, outdated policies, obsolete policies for us to go over. And they were helpful in ranking those in order of need, essentially. And so based on that is how we're trying to structure the policies we're going to go over. They came back to us with 530 policies and ARs that we need to address. So we have some work cut out for us. So we're getting started. A little bit of the process that we're going to use. So using that list, we are figuring out our order. I think our first meeting, we had about 15 policies and ARs that we went over. And we're getting them out for everybody in our committee to be able to see ahead of time and get input from other parties who either have some expertise or could be a little helpful in figuring out some of the language for us. Then we get together for the meetings. We're going through these policies, and you can see on some of them, there's markups where there's some grayed out language that we get choices on what we want to make. They give us a few options. So at that point, we kind of go over what we feel as a group fits those best. If the policy seems ready to go, we will put it on to the first readings like we're doing tonight. There's a few policies, though, that we thought had some issues that we wanted to use our own changes on. And in that case, we're not just going to go on our own to make those changes. We're going to send them back to the OSBA and make sure that there's no legal issues in what we're trying to change in that to not cause any problems. So with the first readings, it's going to come to you guys. Right now we're doing a marked up version of it. If there are any changes or options that we had, and you'll see those. We decided not to do a clean copy so that you could both see what we did and to not duplicate and have a lot of extra paper here. But if anybody would like to, in fact, have the clean copies, we could do that.
Actually put a clean copy in there.
Oh, really?
The first
Okay.
couple didn't have any changes
Yeah.
to them. But like the one when we get to the child abuse, you'll see both the markup
Okay.
copy and then the clean one, just so you could kind of see the difference.
And so we'll kind of briefly go over these. If anyone has questions right now, by all means, we can have the conversation. But this gives you a chance for a few weeks to look over them. And when we do come back with the second reading, just to warn everyone, those will be on the consent agenda. But by all means, if there's anything that we want to pull out for an individual vote, we can make that motion and have a larger conversation at that point. And with that, yeah, we have a few policies here. Evaluation of the superintendent, pretty straightforward, was just what was given to us.
Can I make just a comment on that one, which is you had some choices about how often you wanted to evaluate. We just changed it to once a year. I think that's very appropriate to be providing the superintendent your feedback on my performance each year. And so that was just, but you do have a choice there in kind of what that looks like.
There's another one on the line and staff relations in regard to the superintendent and everyone below, getting some organization charts out there. And actually wanted to go back one moment. We part of these 530 were the ARs as well. We're not going to vote on those. We don't necessarily need to be a part of it, but Dave has decided to have the policy committee be a part of that, which is awesome, I think, and helps with the transparency and clarity of that.
And so I think our process there would be, we would look at it in the policy committee, get feedback from staff on the AR, and then bring it to the board as part of this process to just see how it goes together. You wouldn't vote on those ones, but it seems important for you to see how the administrative rule is breaking out around the policy. So if that's, again, acceptable, that's kind of what we'll plan on doing.
Would you like to go over the policies? Thank you, Director.
So we have the evaluation of the superintendent for your first policy, CBG. As Dave mentioned, we selected the once a year on that one. That was the only marked change on that one. Not change, but the options available to us. The next one with the line and staff relations, as Director Allen mentioned, the policy committee is looking forward to a district organization chart. I think that would be a beneficial document for everybody in light of all the changes we've had. The next one is the Native American Impact Aid Funds. And this one, I do not recall any significant changes on. This was just part of the OSBA package. This would be policy DDB. Policy DDC is a continuation of said policy. And these two especially are just ones that I think that Director Allen and I both are just very grateful for the many other sets of eyes that are on these policies, even before they get to us as policy committee, because there's just so many people in our district who work on these specific things and have expertise here.
Just Jillian can give a little bit of background on these.
So one of the reasons why we're including these policies is because we didn't have, so the policies are required if we participate in the grant funds. We do participate through consortium. I believe it was last year, that was our first year participating in consortium. And his name escapes me right now, but we have a parent from our community who is the chair of our WESD Native American group. And so we do have families that participate and are engaged. And I felt like it was very appropriate to make sure that we had policy around this. So that's why they're in front of you tonight, is because they weren't in our policy before, because we didn't have the funding before. And now we do through consortium.
Thank you. The next policy, EBCA, is on safety threats. And this policy is a real clear layout of what our district will do in the event of a safety threat action.
And this is this is actually what we do right now. So this isn't a change. It's just, again, getting it in policy.
And then the last one for tonight, I believe it's the last one for tonight. This is the one that you can see the most edits were made to. So if you want to sort of separate out the edits and then the clean copy. This is policy GBNAB/JHFE, suspected abuse of a child reporting requirements. There are some you can see in the kind of the crossouts in the grade areas. This one was looked at and edited by legal, by OSBA legal, by internal staff, and then discussed by us at the policy committee as well. Is there anything, Dave, that you want to add to this one?
Yeah, most of this is edited by OSBA's legal. There's a couple of changes just in identifying who we want to make sure gets notified in the organization. That's us. But the rest of this is just to obey law.
In this one, you'll see some of those options like in the second paragraph, shall is marked out and must is highlighted. We had the option between the report shall or must contain. And in those situations, I think it's helpful for you all if you can see the choices we made there.
Just to clarify, I'm looking at the district website. This is a new policy to the district. We didn't have one. Because when you put that number in, the number, it doesn't come up.
Yeah, so I looked at that earlier too, because I had some questions, and I'll be bringing that up here in a moment. So GBNAB did not have, it wasn't there, but we do have a JHFE. So I think at this point, they're just combining the two and kind of covering both all the, yeah.
And that is part of this process that is going to, it might feel a little clunky at first because when we got the report back from OSBA, they rank things and they tell us these things are, required, these things are missing, this needs to be updated. But there are some that when we look through here, it looks like it should be deleted, but really it's just being combined with another one. So it will take us a long time to get through all 530 at the end. It's going to be much clearer, but there will be some process in here where we are combining and it will, so thank you for noticing that. The other thing that I just wanted to note too is that, as we go through this process, it's really, multi-step. So there's the pre-work that Dave and Tabitha are doing that's wonderful and so helpful. And then everybody on leadership and on staff who's doing their edits. Then policy committee works on it, looks at it. Then we bring it to you guys. Then the next board meeting, we'll do that second read and hopefully pass it. And then after that, it's a while before it becomes official and onto the website. So it really is going to take us a while to get through. But we're hoping that we can do it now that we have this process, that we can do it consistently enough. We can do it monthly so we can really start chipping away at it and it will start to feel like we are putting a dent in this. But I think that process of doing the first reading together and then having that second reading, putting them in the consent agenda, but really hoping that you are spending that time in between the first two meetings, digging into them, and don't feel bad at all about pulling something out of the consent agenda so that we can discuss it.
I just want to say thank you for your work. This is much needed.
Yeah, for sure. I do have just one general question before I get in some comments when we get into this more. If some of these edits were done by the OSBA attorneys, then are they going to be looking at updating their standard sample going forward? And that's just kind of a back ahead thought. And like, if they're updating their own things, then shouldn't they be updating it generally for everybody? Did anybody ask that question or understand
So
that?
they're updating everybody else's all the time. We get like monthly, quarterly, we get a set of policies that they're already doing this on. We also had to go back and take a look at, we've got old policy that has outdated language in it. This is, I believe they're taking, I don't know, your question is, does everybody else have to go through and kind of correct their policies? I don't like that one. I think is already newer, this child abuse one, like they've already got a newer copy. So I think they grabbed whatever we adopted back in, I don't have the local one, but I think they're going off of what we had.
Okay. Well, their last revised one, the OSBA sample, was this last year.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering if their attorneys are already making modifications, and if those modifications are just towards us, that's fine. I just didn't know if it looked like some of the modifications were more generalization updates, and it's like,
Most of this stuff is generally to the law and not specific to us.
okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I answered that very well, but
it's good enough.
Well, and so some of the blue marked out is us getting rid of those lines because it was an option. That's not all just
Right.
OSBA changing wide swaths of this.
Okay.
That was like, again, those options that we had, and so we crossed them out so that you could see what the options were, even though I see now on paper it looks a lot different than it does on the PDF document to see what our
Maybe, yeah.
options are.
The comments boxes aren't on the side, right?
Exactly.
right.
Okay. I do have questions or comments about this specific policy. Is this a
Yeah.
time to bring that up?
Yeah.
Okay. One, I read both versions, especially I had to go to the kind of the OSBA sample one just to understand exactly what it is because of all the line scratch out and like just easier to clean and read, right? To me, the one comment is like when it gets starting to talking about the designees and report of suspected abuse and to that, like it's and maybe as the policy committee has kind of looked into this and read it and kind of absorbed it more, maybe you can, it's more of an education. But to me, it's like it's confusing of the designee and if that's attributed to only to reports to say DHS into where it's like a family abuse case, or if it's only internal abuse cases, like a teacher to a child, and you're relating it, you know, and you're have observed or you think there's something there, right? And so so to me, it's a little confusing. Like the first few paragraphs seem straightforward, but then once it starts getting the designee, I start getting lost. So
I think there's two things here. One is that in the AR, so the way our process works is that if you are a mandatory reporter and you believe that there is something, you have to report it. That goes to the state.
Mhm.
Currently, we dial into OHA, DHS, OHA, and but then there's also a thing like in the building for me as a building administrator, I need to know when someone has made that phone call. I need to know kind of what's happening in the building. Those forms go in front of the building principal and then they all come in front of me. I sign every single one of those forms so that I know what's happening. And we have some paper trail going through. I do think that when we write this, I was looking at our AR and I don't think it's very well documented, like what that, and specifically that form, I don't see in our AR. And so just making it very clear that yes, and usually what happens is when someone says, they usually go to their boss and they say, hey, I think this is going on. Only the person who has the suspicion can make the phone call. The administrator cannot make the phone call for them. So usually they sit side by side and then make the phone call to make it easier. And then they fill out that form. But it isn't clear from our AR how that goes. And I do know that there are, we should make that should not be a problem, that we should make that very clear what our set of steps are. I don't want anyone not knowing how to do that. So as we begin to work on the AR, and the AR forms are not in there. The only AR form that's sitting in there is the one that if a caseworker comes in and wants to interview a student, we ask that they fill out a form so we know who in the government is making that piece. But I'll go back and we'll take a look at that AR and see if we can make that much clearer.
I was gonna say too, in where I work, it says here either or to law enforcement or DHS. And I know that's helpful because you don't want to dual report necessarily because they're going to cross report. But I know, like, for example, if someone comes to my office, like a school counselor, and comes and makes the report directly to me versus DHS, they have to fill out that form you're talking about. And then they put my name down that they made that report to. So I just want to see that something similar would be, I'm sure, here where if they make the report, say to, Officer Stearns or Officer Moreland, that they still fill out that form saying, hey, I made my mandatory report to them, but route that to you so that it's kind of covered.
Right.
Because I'm sure that also goes to liability too. So later, if something happens, the school can say, yeah, no, we made our report there, and then you have the written report that it was made.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and on honesty, transparency, just the policy itself. Once it starts talking about designee, it's confusing in general. I did talk to Dave earlier about this, and I know he's already said he's addressing it. I remember last year there was a big snafu about reporting it to the administration in the office and or up to the district office. Right. And so I suggested that maybe he reach out to like the union presidents and also make sure just to get their understanding and work with them to just make sure everybody's on the same page, and maybe they bring an angle into it where the policy committee needs to maybe just think and observe of what their concerns are, if they have any at this point, to make sure it's a well-rounded policy updates and of course AR updates. I know it's not our job to approve those, but as you mentioned, you will bring this forward. So yeah, I mean that's all I wanted to bring up. I'm glad we're going through this, and let's tackle those 500 plus policies. So
Yeah, I will say that with something like, especially this one, it gets very wordy and confusing, and that's unfortunately policy often just as a catch-all. I think the AR is going to be really important for this one. But on your last point too, absolutely would love to have union reps come and give their input. But I think that's part of this, is that it does create a better understanding for everyone to see, at least like here's the process, not I heard this, no, it's in policy now in a way that I wasn't as fully before.
Honestly, thank you guys to the policy committee and Dave for working on this. I think especially with what we just went through with the proclamation, that this is a very important one for this month. And I just wanted to call out, I don't know if this was the policy committee or OSBA that put it in here, but I really like that you actually have the DHS hotline in there, making that super easy for that. And I don't know, maybe another suggestion is when this goes live, if it's not already on the district website or something, just making it easy for people. The easier we make it for people to report, the more we're going to have that, as like, again, going back to our proclamation, just really making the education to everyone. So thank you for the work you're doing that and putting that right in the policy. That's amazing. So.
Yeah, I want to echo the thanks. One question that I have is, seeing that volunteers of the district are held to the same policy, what are the implications of that, of how we onboard volunteers?
No.
We discussed that at length, and we went back and looked at the process to become a volunteer, which does include a number of documents and the background check. But we also discussed perhaps some ways to update that volunteer webpage to make that information even more clear and accessible to families and anybody who wants to volunteer in our district.
Yeah, and near the end, it talks about the district shall make available to students, district employees, contractors, agents, and volunteers a policy of appropriate electronic communications with students. And it was an interesting conversation because district employees have an actual training that's built into beginning of the year, I believe.
Yep.
And each of these has the students is in their handbook. We're working on making that clear, but it's not that everyone has to take a full training who is in those. We need to make sure that we have the resources available to provide so that those people have no question of what is or is not appropriate conduct. It's a tough line there, though, where we can't ask somebody who's coming into the classroom to take a 2-hour training during the workday.
It used to be that we would run through at the beginning of the year, they'd run advisories, and we'd run through the rights and responsibilities, specific parts that we need all kids to learn. Are they still running that at the beginning of the year? I don't think so. Yeah. We're reviving. So we're currently reviving the rights and responsibilities. We've already begun talking with the secondary school specifically. And it's not that we have to go through every page of the rights and responsibilities, but there are some specific ones that are really important for us to just remind folks of. So that's another thing we've got going in the background.
To clarify the question to the student reps, the student handbook, I think is what he's referring to. Do you go through that the first week? Usually in the past, it used to be like first period of every day you would like to spend that period going through it. So,
Uh, I don't think so. I don't
okay.
I didn't really go over it. If we did, I didn't remember it, so maybe
That's fine.
and yeah, maybe
So I
maybe it
know
works that way.
pre-COVID, my boys did it all,
Right.
but then I think post-COVID is when it maybe fell through the cracks. So,
Yeah, yeah. And it's, again, we don't want to make it super long either, but it is important that we hit some specific pieces. So, yep.
And I guess just to book in this, like sending any of these policies back to the policy committee with recommendations or changes, like by all means, that's part of this whole process. It is not, it's here. So if we don't pass it, it's a problem. Like, please give us the input so we can keep doing the work to make it right.
And I appreciate that. I'm not saying I'm going to push anything back at this point, but I think maybe the correlation with the AR on this last policy might take another time then to read that with the ARs and then go the next meeting after that, approve it, because I think it's going to, I would like to say like my questions and concerns about like, it's confusing towards the last half of the policy. And I understand policy verbiage can be boring and mundane, but it's like, there should be a correlation between the two. Like there should not be something in here that has nothing to do about an AR or that doesn't dictate anything. So like, I'm sure I might come back with a different, viewpoint, once we have the ARs to go with it too. So.
Well, this has been great discussion. Appreciate everybody's input. Okay, thanks. All right, looks like we have, next is bond progress and update. Mr. Hampton,
Good job.
you again. Have a seat.
Good evening. I think we got this stuck into your packet maybe late, but and this, this isn't perfect, but this is kind of the list that we've been going from for a while. And so I thought this would be a good place just to kind of review. And again, a lot of these things have been done already or are very much in process. I mean, several you've approved the contracts, but we're just waiting until summer, or even there's work going on, but it's not done yet, that kind of thing. I'm happy to answer questions about anything. I think what I'd like to do is kind of talk more about what is still, what's on here that's still out there, and what are we thinking about those as we move forward. So, and if I skip over something that you want to know more about, please stop me or have me go back. So again, just real quick running down, number 4, district officers, that's coming probably this spring even. We hope to not even wait till the summer because that is, we're not quite as worried about. Yeah, well, we got a leak happening again in a corner of the building, and that a place that's tended to leak over the years. And so the sooner we can get that done, the better. We're less concerned, not that we want to disrupt people here, but we're a little less concerned about disrupting people here than we are the classroom. Yeah. So feel like, if we can get it done sooner, we will. The physical plant roofs we ran into some issues with the south building, the main building where the office is, just finding that, I mean, there were some complications anyway with, we found out the metal wasn't screwed on. We were going to just replace the screws. And then we found out it's not screwed on, it's nailed on, which makes it more complicated. And then as we got looking at the structure more and needing to see if the system we wanted to put on it could handle the weight of kind of another roof on top of it, the structural engineer said, no, it can't. In fact, we really need to do some repair, some deeper repair. So we're pivoting a bit. It absolutely needs to be done, and that, those buildings are important to the district. And so, but what's going to happen is we're going to take off the roof. We're going to take out all the insulation. The wood, the purlins, it's wood there. The other buildings have steel, but those are wood. They're kind of at the limit of what, like a 2x12, what it's supposed to span and how much weight it's supposed to carry, that kind of thing. And some of them have been soaking wet for a number of years because of the leaks. And the insulation sits right in between and super wet. And so some of them are rotted. We know that. We know some of them are. What we don't know is how many, because all that insulation is up there. And so one of the, we're going to have to do a much more major work and tear all that out, replace what purlins need to be replaced. There's some blocking that they'll put in. There'll be some other things. We'll put actually plywood on before. And then also what we'll do, because we're taking out the insulation, then we'll put rigid styrofoam insulation on top, underneath the metal. And so we'll get back to, the level of insulation we need, but not having the insulation right against the wood, that if it does get damp at all, it just holds it there, and no place for it to go. No, it can't breathe and stuff. So anyway, just so that project will be needing some more funds. We don't necessarily come back to you for that unless it just really gets crazy, but want you to know that it is going to take more. Actually, the other two buildings, we've simplified it a little bit. We are, again, we were going to put a system over the top. Now what we're going to do is just tear off the metal on all of them and just replace it. But the other two, it's just a simple take it off. And in fact, we get a credit back for those because it's not a lot, a couple $1,000s for each building, but it's actually cheaper for them to do it this way than to put a whole nother system on top. And it's, in the end, it's the same roof. It's a nice, good new metal roof that has, the warranty and all that. So anyway, rooftop units, those are on order, just waiting for them to arrive. The paint and seal at CV and Crater we'll talk about in a little bit. The next couple are done. The gym roof at the high school, again, that's this summer. And then the main building and a roof at the high school. Again, that's that we hope to start sooner because it's a kind of roofing that won't have a lot of smell and other kinds of things that would disrupt, and so that could happen sooner. We're actually, again, there working with the contractors that got that bid to evaluate basically all the other parts of the roof on kind of the main building roofs at the high school, so we know what it would cost to do all of them, so that we can make an informed decision. If we have enough money, we would like to do them all. Then we're just in good shape with all of it. One of the things we really don't want to do is finish this bond. We've done wonderful work. We've done all this neat stuff, and a couple of buildings still leaking. That's just be so frustrating. Not that there aren't possibilities of little things, but anyway, so we're gathering information there, and we'll make some decisions. And it may not be that we can do all of them, but we'll try and then target which areas are most important, which areas have been leaking actively, and try and replace those. Moving on, the high school stadium lights are done. The auditorium curtains got done over spring break. Mike's super happy with that. That was great. The number 15, the siding. There's this one kind of flat wall. Years ago, there was a infill built between buildings E and F that added 4 more science classrooms back then. And there's that one wall, it was stucco, and it's in bad shape, and in fact, we just said, okay, we just got to, again, taking care of envelope things, we got to take care of that. As it turned out, the company that's redoing the stucco, when they peeled out the stucco, about half of the sheeting on that wall, it was OSB, so the oriented strand board, you could literally put your finger through it, or you could just kind of go like this and it would just crumble. Fortunately, the 2x6s for the studs, I mean, some of them were compromised, but like an inch in or something. So, I mean, we've at this point then, so last week, when they were going to be starting the actual new stucco, they've been reframing or adding and beefing up the framing of that. Took off all the sheeting, added a bunch of new. They mostly didn't have to take out any, but they cut out all the rotted stuff and sistered on studs next to them. Put all new insulation in, have resheeted it. Now they're getting back to stuccoing. Again, something that we weren't super surprised that there was some bad there. Maybe a little surprised how bad, but obviously it's something we needed to do. And so it's good that we're getting that taken care of. And so again, that'll be finished up in the next few weeks. Once they kind of are back to a clean surface, actually it'll make it much simpler for them if they just have this all clean surface. The number 16, this is something we're hoping to be able to do this spring or summer. We have the old generator from the high school when we built the new building and upgraded to this huge, massive generator. The old one was still in decent shape. And so it's been sitting down at the physical plant, but we'd like to get that set up. And so really you're just talking about kind of the labor, I mean, the wiring and stuff, but the labor, because we have the district freezer down there, as well as at least some of the like access control computers, some of that kind of stuff that, it's not just phones or it's not just their lights that go out if the power goes down. And so it feels like just a good use of something we already have, and there's space for it and stuff too. So, and again, that it's, we have budgeted 75,000. I think we even had one of the electrical company that kind of gave us the specs for it. I think they even were less than that. So hoping that can be better even. 17 is, we've been working with Ben Burkhart, and at this point, that unit has had some work and it's going fine. So we're not looking to replace that. That's something that, if there are contingency funds left at some point, 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 years from now, maybe we'll need that. But at this point, it seems to be fine. The 18 is complete. 19, I hopefully not too flippantly said last night, well, we may not be able to get to that. We're going to do it. We're working on that now. We may or may not re-carpet. The high school really has said, we just like that old carpet gone because it's so bad. We don't necessarily want carpet back, but if you replace something, that would be great. We're looking initially at polished concrete because we've kind of gone to that in this bond and all the new buildings, and it's pretty easy to maintain and all that, and cheaper in some ways. There can be a little more expense to doing it. We're also, there's a question of, are we even too late for this summer to get somebody scheduled? But it is our plan to move ahead with that. And we've even talked about, well, if we can't get somebody to polish it this summer, do we just get them to tear it all out and we just have kind of an ugly cement floor for a year until we can get it polished? But it's really bad, and it doesn't smell great, and every time they shampoo it, it has huge waves in it. So just, we are going ahead with that. And then number 20, bleacher replacement. That was kind of not a necessity, but something it would be nice. In the past, we've spent a fair amount on kind of keeping the bleachers working, but they actually are working pretty well now. And it's not, again, they're not a safety hazard or anything. So I feel like that's one that can go out there further and isn't really something we need to do right now. So anyway, that's kind of where we are. If depending on how contingencies go on some of these things and how over the physical plant, how many purlins we have to replace, those kind of things. I mean, we're still we feel like we're fine with bond money to cover these things. We don't feel like there's going to be a lot left, and at that point, which we don't really want. I don't want to say the word because there are other funds that have kind of related to the bond that we're trying to keep our hands off of as much as possible, so that they can be used for other things that are really needed in the next few years. So it's possible that we would maybe need to use a bit, but that or it's our desire to, as much as possible, stay within the actual bond money that's still available.
Well, thank you, Larry. This is great. Definitely from a project perspective and where we're at with everything. The one kind of question I still have outstanding is like, how much actually do we still have in the bond coffers, and like where does each one of these put it to? Like, if we did everything, even including bleachers, does that put us at zero or -0? And then on top of that, that's one question. That I guess I would request maybe going forward on this one, especially if there's a couple of these items that are contingency, because not contingency, but you're finding issues and there may be a bump up in cost. Can we add maybe another column or two to say change since board approved or something, and then like a dollar amount to see like how, if one thing, what was it, the stucco wall, right? So now we're saying that your estimate was 65,000. We bid and quoted and PO'd issued for 51,000. Well, initially we saved 13, but like then add another column like, hey, well, we had issues, and so now was that 12,000 to 13? Does that push us over the initial 65? Just so we have a better understanding of like where we were in the
and for the most part, those change orders will, for these kind of projects, I mean, like when we build a new school, we get change orders kind of along the way and we approve them in bunches along the way. With these kind of projects, the tendency is we kind of, I mean, we're talking about them as they go, and they're keeping track of things and let us know what they are, but it's not all finalized until the end of the project. I mean, I can say that I know the siding, the number 15, what we asked them for was kind of a time and materials and a not to exceed amount, and what they said, not to exceed 30,000 for all the repair work that was done. So if it comes out to be the full 30,000, then obviously that'll go over in that area.
Which area?
What it'll go over on number 15 of what we budgeted. We had budgeted 65. The bid came in at 51. We have 13,000 left over. It would go over that.
So it'll be in that column?
We will.
Yeah, I don't care how you track it. I mean, if you want to do a change order column, that's great, and the plus or minus or whatever.
What I've been told, I know Emil Hamid from Cornerstone has been working on budget stuff. I know he's been working with Nate some. One of the things he's trying to do is close down all the POs for all the projects that are done, that still have money sitting in them, so that we can kind of gather in those monies and know, okay, there's no reason to have 20,000 sitting over here if that project is completely done and we're not going to go back to it. So that 20,000 should go back in the pot. What Emil told me the other day on the phone anyway was basically, if with the contingencies that we have built into some of these things right now, if things don't go above those, we will still end up in the black a little bit for the bond, without hitting up interest or any of those kinds of things. Now, again, that's, it's hard to know on some of these things what, how deep we'll have to go and what it'll take and that kind of thing. But yes, we will provide you more information as we know. Yeah.
Sounds good. And then I do have one question for Dave and or Nate, or Nathan. When we've already approved the physical plant last meeting, and if there's a change order that comes in, like when should we, should we approve it no matter what? Do we have to come back? Or is there anything in our policy, which I don't know if there is, or the construction bond, like when does it have to come back to us to approve? Like, is it over certain percentage points of, the original quoted bid, right? To me, it's, we definitely give the bond committee and everything, I think, trust of trying to run everything, but I think at some point we need to, feels like, and maybe I know we're towards the end of this whole bond process, but we should have some type of oversight and authority to say, like, and if there is, what is that threshold that we have to give that, approval on?
So I'm gonna have to do a little thinking about that. Because there is this, when you approve the building of the high school's new building, there's thousands of change orders that you didn't approve. But I also understand if you're making a motion to approve a project and that project goes up or down, I don't know. Let me do a little thinking about this, and I'll get back to you on kind of what that answer is.
Well, and I can say that, like at the high school, the overall budget, we actually, I believe, came in within the overall budget for the high school projects, even though we added a whole bunch of things. Some of them we discovered, or they took care of some other things on that campus for us that really needed to be fixed, but weren't really in the scope. And we said, yes, please do that now while you're doing this. But we came, so the bigger projects just have a way bigger contingency built in, and we're at that point in the bond now where these kinds of projects, they're not as big and they don't have anywhere near the contingency built in as well. And in fact, in some cases, like with the two to approve tonight, Crater and CV, they kind of made a stab at, and really in the end, we're talking about, it's like, okay, that's maybe what it would cost for a 1-story building to repaint it without a lot of other things to fix. We knew that was going to be really low. And so, but anyway, so that I think complicates a little bit more at this point, because these weren't projects that were necessarily even on the list originally, but they're things that have come up that we need to fix it, and we still have money in the bond. Let's get as many of these things fixed as we can. So, but I think it's a very valid question, a very valid point, but yeah, I don't know that either, as far as at what point you have to reapprove.
Again, I got to look at your actual motions, and we'll take a look at that, because there is a good question there. So I just don't have the answer right now.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Now I will give one positive. Everything has been great on this. I live within the neighborhood of the high school field, and the new lights, there's no light pollution. And sometimes I don't even realize there's a game going on until actually I hear the noise and not see the lights on. So it's really nice. So
At least you don't hear my voice over the intercom.
I miss those times though.
I was just hoping to confirm from the estimated construction cost line or column to the completion date column, those are all the current dates, numbers. I just got a little bit confused reading the projects, because there's a few pieces of information either there in the notes that seem to contradict different parts. So I just want to make sure that those columns we're really looking at there. Like the number 3, it says not out to bid yet, goes to bid in November in the notes. Clearly that's already happened.
Right, that's not, yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure
in fact, you've approved that. Yeah, I know it. I asked for this, for them to give me this updated, because I knew I was going to be talking to you, and I wanted to be able to share as much information I could with you. And so, yeah, I think some of the notes haven't been well, and the carpet, it still says it's I think it says that it's on hold. Yeah.
Yeah.
And okay,
but
not anymore.
I just wanted to confirm that from
yes, as far as I know, the
construction to
numbers are right
construction.
as
Okay.
with what we know now.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, we ready to move on to the action item for Crater?
I want you to know that I got to do algebra because of this bid. And it didn't come that hard to me either. I'll explain. And I'm going to talk about, we have them as two, I think, do we have them as two separate? It's actually one. Okay. We had them bid separately, but on the same sheet, and we really, our intention or our hope was to have one company do both. So we had an interesting situation where, I'm sorry, I'll back up just a minute too. So in addition to the specified work, the painting and the cleaning and the sealing and all that kind of stuff, we said there's a lot of caulking that needs to happen on these buildings. We don't know exactly how much, we haven't measured every caulk joint and everything to see, but we know there's a fair amount. And because we didn't quantify it for them to, it was hard for them to include it in their overall bid or quote. So what we asked them to do was give us a per lineal foot chart, what they would charge for caulking. Now, if you look at the bid sheet or the one that has the three, it's very interesting. I mean, the prices, their quotes, and first of all, the one company that we want to give it to, Portland, they actually, if you took their two quotes for the two buildings separately, they're $16,000 high, but they said, but if we get both buildings, we'll discount $10,000. So now at that point, they're $6,000 high above the low bid. But then if you look at the per foot cost for caulking, so the highest bidders said they'd do it for $1.10 a foot. The Portland said they'd do it for $5 a foot, and JM said they do it for $19 a foot. So I'm not sure what their thinking was. I have my speculations, but it's like, wow, okay. Well, it kind of depends on how many feet there are then. So we decided that there was enough that we should give it to the company that wasn't the lowest, but had the lower per foot costs. And so we actually had a protest from J&M saying, well, that isn't fair. That isn't right. We went out and looked and measured, and we looked back at our paperwork and reminded them it's right there in the paperwork that you're supposed to do your due diligence to figure out how much. What we determined is there's probably at least 750 feet to 1,000 feet of caulking needs to be done. My algebra, I got to do this equation, it's where you go, this cost plus 19x equals this cost plus 5x, what does x equal? So at 457 feet of caulking, J&M would have been the better price for us. At 458 feet or more, Portland ends up being the better deal for us. And so that's why we're recommending to you tonight them that when they finally figured out the math and things like that, then J&M pulled back their protest and removed it, and they understood that I think that they should have bid better on the caulking. But anyway, so that's kind of the background. Again, this is work that'll happen this summer, cleaning everything on the outside and resealing the brick, repainting the stucco. There will be some repair. Again, who knows how much. And still to come, separate from this bid, there's the out front of Shalem Valley. There's kind of what I call the eyebrow or whatever, the metal, the roof that hangs out over in front of the cafeteria. That the underside of that is terrible. It's just falling down. It just looks really bad. And then under where you just walk in the main doors, if you look up, still on the outside. Again, it's like they use the sheetrock kind of stuff on the outside, and it's gotten wet and it looks bad. So what we'd like to do is the same kind of thing that we are doing at Joanne Austin for their whole walkway and what we did over here at Edwards in the overhangs is put a metal skin under all of that. I mean, clean out all the bad stuff, but put metal there. And then at CV would also actually put a new roof just on that little eyebrow section because it's obviously been leaking as well. So that will be, again, a separate bid because these companies don't do that kind of work, and they don't necessarily act as general contractors either to oversee like roofers doing that work. So that'll be a separate thing that we'll do. But anyway, so sorry, long story, but
Just out of curiosity, do you anticipate any aesthetic color changes to either of the buildings? Are you sticking with the same?
we're looking at a light gray in
Wonderful.
place of the kind of peachy whatever.
Cool. Thank you.
I don't get to choose colors very often, but I gotta weigh in on it a little bit. So there we go.
Larry, I wanted to, first of all, thank you. And the fact that you were able to bring algebra into a board meeting just makes my
Absolutely.
week. As the math teacher, I appreciate that. So can I just confirm on the bid tabulation form, the total column does not include the caulking? That's going to depend on how much caulking there actually is to
Correct.
replace. Is
Yes.
that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And
it will be
that
higher.
variable is what is leading us to
Yes.
to want to go with Portland rather than
Correct.
JAM. Okay. Thank you.
I wanted to challenge you on how many feet it would take for Delta to then be the top, but it's going to be ridiculous. I am curious though, just in terms of what we're talking about before with this, if we hadn't put that caulking price in there, is that when we're talking about those change orders later on coming in, the contingency that we're pulling from?
Yeah, I mean, again, this will add to the price, but it is, we did want to at least be able to make an educated, a decision about based on actual costs,
Yeah.
For what they could do the work for. So yeah, there, some of it, there will be some discussion between us and actually even the envelope designer person that we're working with on, what exactly does need to be changed,
Yeah.
what caulking does need to be.
And I mean, I really appreciate that because I think that helps,
Yeah.
will help me understand later when it's like, oh, this went over by
Right.
thousands of dollars
Yeah.
because of that. But yeah, so I appreciate you putting that in there and just helping me better understand those kind of changes. So thank you.
Before we get to approving this, I guess I would on your spreadsheets,
Mm-hmm.
I might suggest breaking line 8 out into just doing the seal and paints, and then maybe doing a separate line for the overhangs. Because
Yeah.
you're already
Yes.
plugging in numbers there for
Yes.
this job, right? So
Yes. No, that's
Just-
a good, yeah.
Yeah.
And especially now that we thought at one point maybe we could, we have a roofing contractor doing work somewhere else. Can we just, but then it ended up, at least the quote they gave us is like, okay, that's more than we can just kind of say, hey, can you come over and do this
Sure.
too? So yeah, that'll need to be a separate.
If there's, okay, I'd like to move that the Newberg Dundee Public School Board of Directors approve the intent to award Antonia Crater and Chehalis Valley Middle School exterior clean paint and seal project to the Portland Coating Inc., DBA Williamson and Bleed as presented.
Second.
Any further questions? Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry, very much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Dave, do you want to go first and we can
Yeah.
just maybe go this direction this time?
Yeah, wanted to just quickly talk. We put in kind of an updated monthly count. So just wanted to orient you to that.
Oh, there you go.
Um,
Thanks.
First at the bottom, it's your little total table. And you'll see that the first number has an asterisk next to it. So next year, I'll be able to put in the exact numbers that we used to budget. But when we went back to the state, looked for the budgeted numbers for how many kids we were budgeting on. This was the number.
Keep that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I was in a zone.
Thanks,
too.
Mrs. Snyder.
So I wanted to put in the number that we actually found from the state, but that number's not right. I can tell you in October, which was kind of our official, when we do our official numbers, it was 1686. So we've actually lost like 7 students over since October. But what you'll see going forward is what we budget for. We'll put those numbers in there so you can see the difference from what we budgeted. It's just last year that was a little sketchy, is all. The other numbers are pretty accurate, I think, for kind of where we're at. And you can see, you know, overall, we've lost probably not really fewer kids than normal from where you start in October when we do our first census to the end. Usually there's a swing in a district our size of 70, 80 kids. I'm actually a little surprised we haven't lost more, just with things that go on, people moving out and the rest. So, but that's how you use that chart to kind of tell where we're at against our budget. This first page, again, we did school by school, so you can kind of see schools. You still have the second page where you can see all of the different grade levels together, so you can kind of compare where we're at kindergarten wise. And then you still have the same basic reports, 6th grade through 12th grade that you've seen before. And so that's kind of what you'll see now in those, in that monthly kind of enrollment report that we track on.
The math isn't adding up on that budget comparison,
Is that right?
just on the total under the budgeted. Says,
You're right.
so,
So we'll fix the.
yeah, just as a note for next time.
Typically, that'll be something we enter in once at the beginning of the year. And so I'm pretty sure those are just, I entered it in wrong.
I think you probably have an equation there and it didn't count the 1835 because you had asterisk in it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Good mathing.
well, good excelling. It's an Excel thing, not math.
So that's the enrollment report going right now. Wanted to do just a couple. First, last meeting, we talked a little bit about the girls' locker room. Wanted to get back to you just on during the ice storm in January 24, we had a large buildup of ice against one of the vents in the roof of McGrath Gym. As the ice melted, it ran down through the vent and caused significant water damage to the attic storage area and in the girls' PE locker room. That locker room was closed from January of 24 to October of 24 while the contractors gutted and completed it. It has now been completely fixed, and as of October, late October, it is being used, and the equipment that was ruined was been replaced, and it's all been covered. So that part is, we're back going. Then I just wanted to just make some comments about kind of the funding outlook. As we look ahead to the 2025-26 school year, I think it's critical we understand both the opportunity and the challenge that we have in front of us. The governor took an important step by forming this new commission to assess the current service level. We've talked about it in previous board meetings. The amount of the current service level is the amount of funding that they're calculating it's going to be for us just to run our program again next year. When they did this, they came up with $11.36 billion. That's an 11% increase. But let's be clear, it's not an expansion. That $11.36 billion figure is merely brings us back to par. It gets us what we have this year moving forward. It allows us to sustain the current state of our schools and begin to undo some of the reductions that we've endured. It reflects the reality of inflation, increased costs, and the evolving needs of our students and staff, but it doesn't reflect an investment in meaningful improvement, innovation, and long-term sustainability for our district. And I'm just bringing this up because the legislature is in session. Discussions are underway about increasing the funding above the governor's budget of 11.36. And I think that's where we come in, because of if we want to restore lost programs, rebuild staff capacity, and move our district forward in a sustainable, effective way, we need the budget to be bigger than 11.36. And so it's important now, this is a crucial time over the next 8 weeks, that we reach out to our legislators and let them know how we feel about this. They do have over $2 billion in rainy day funds to support education. They don't even have to use all of those rainy day funds, but they should be kicking in some of those funds. And for Newberg, it's critically important that we have an expansion in revenues. And the 11.36 is actually not going to cover current service level. It's actually going to come in right below it. So I just want to encourage us all to talk to our legislators. I can get you the names and contacts if you want. There's an OSBA kind of meeting coming up later in the month to talk about this. I would encourage us all to kind of get involved. It's critically important that we are not reacting to this, but shaping it and helping people understand where we're at. And in the coming weeks here, we're about ready to start presenting on the budget, but I wanted to kind of end this meeting with that piece, that the governor's budget is going to get us what we have this year, maybe. But it's not going to get us some of the other things that we need still. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my board colleague or boss.
I'll make sure my mic is on. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate the update financially. Couple of things that I wanted to just say by way of comments. First of all, I know we've been in school for a week and a half after spring break, but I wanted to say welcome back. I hope students and staff that you had a restful week, and you're geared up for the rest of the year. It can be a haul to get to the finish line. I also know that schools are holding conferences this week, and I want to recognize the heavier lift of teachers and school staff this week, not just logistically, but relationally. So thank you for the work that you do to know our children. I also want to invite families to take advantage of a chance to meet as partners in the work of educating children. And I know for me personally, I'm always grateful for the ways that my daughter's teachers know them and see them and have a chance to discuss both their academic progress and just their overall development as humans. So thank you. Seeing some, I'm nodding to our teachers and counselors and other staff that are out here. Also, on Saturday, I had the privilege of joining Chair Bridges at the Dundee Elementary Auction. What an amazing event that was. A great night of fun, just a great showcase of our community as well. So I'm grateful for all the volunteer work that went into that event. I'm grateful for all the work that our students did to build the projects that were auctioned off. And I hope it was a great time. Yesterday, I had the privilege of touring Dundee Elementary, and I want to give a special thank you to Principal Tim Wright and the staff and students for welcoming me there. What a beautiful space. And as we've been talking about the investment of our community and our schools, Dundee Elementary is just a beautiful space. So it was great to see the learning happening there and hear, the things that are working well and also the things that people miss about the old school. So I want to thank you to our Dundee staff that are here tonight. Thank you for welcoming me there. And then finally, I know that we've got a lot of activities that are continuing this spring. So spring sports have started. I just came from the track meet, the dual track meet down in McMinnville, watching my daughter run. Great time out in the wind. And last night, getting to go to the Newberg High School Orchestra and band concerts. Great performance. Appreciate the work that Mr. Tanner puts in, among others, in our performing arts group. So I want to say good luck to our orchestras and bands as they move into festival season. Finally, I want, just because it's important, as Dave was talking about the governor's budget and some of the challenges there, we also are trying to keep our fingers on the pulse of what's happening federally. And so I wanted to bring the community an update about some of the federal news that we're seeing. My understanding is that at this time, the changes at the federal level have not financially impacted our district. Other than one grant that I understand was taken away or canceled from nutrition that our budget has been able to absorb. And so thinking about some of the larger funding streams and grants that come from the federal level, title funding in particular, my understanding is that those have not impacted our district right now. So I think it's important for our community to understand that. That said, changes or cuts there would drastically impact our situation. And so we're really keeping an eye on that. Thank you.
I want to start by saying thank you to Kira for designing these awesome shirts and getting me one of them, and for being a part of helping us do that proclamation, which I'm grateful for the work that was done to make that happen. I also wanted to shout out with the integrated programs. It was awesome seeing those numbers and seeing that kind of progress. I think that that's the kind of things that help, I think, our community grow and help me on the board to be, to see that kind of actual progress that's made and the hard work that's done by all the staff and all of you for doing that. So thank you for doing that for our kids and getting everybody closer to a more equitable education outcomes. And then the other fun thing I got to do this week is last week I got to go to the family literacy night hosted by George Fox at Joan Austin. One of our student reps was there as well. Yeah, it was really great. It was great to see all the kids get excited about donating their old books, getting new books, finding ways at grade level to play some fun reading games, and just seeing kids excited about reading was great Thursday evening. So really appreciate Joan Austin and everyone putting that on, and George Fox.
Also want to echo the t-shirt's great, and it was an amazing job done there, and really love the proclamation, as well as the work that was done earlier on as we went over on the policy that reflects that. And then the only other thing I want to share is I'm super excited. In a couple weeks, my daughter is registering for kindergarten at Joan Austin, so I'll be going straight from kindergarten registration to our board meeting. So super excited about that. Terrified but excited, so ready for that. So really excited to have her in there. So
I too had a great time Saturday night. Love being and supporting the schools in their auctions and all their, cute classroom projects and all that kind of fun stuff. And that community coming together to celebrate the school. I had an opportunity last week to speak a little about the school board, and I was reflecting on hope and why hope is such an important component to the work that we're doing. And I will tell you very honestly, that's what I felt like from tonight's meeting. It was just such a positive meeting, having Kira here, celebrating her beautiful artwork, but also there's just a real cohesiveness that I feel in this board, and I'm just really proud to be a part of it, and the work that is, moving forward, and everything that the educators and of all levels are out there doing to, help our kids. I'm just really very excited about, the sprint to the finish line at graduation, but the work that we're really tackling now just seems incredibly meaningful. And having had a couple of years under about almost 2 years, folks, I feel like we're moving out of the fog of problems, and we're really looking at what we're doing for our students, but also celebrating the successes, but looking at where we have room for improvement. So it feels really good to me. So thank you.
I wanted to start with saying congratulations to the Mountain View Middle School Choir and their teacher, Anna Medina. They performed at George Fox University on Saturday with George Fox Choir and with a community choir from the Fringe retirement community. They had an excellent performance, and I hope it was a positive experience for them. They did a really good job. And then I was really pleased to see, I'm going to put on my school librarian hat here. I was really pleased to see in the district newsletter from the 4th that they had a picture of the staff that works in the school libraries in the here in Newberg, because proclamations, this is the proclamation by the American Library Association, is that April 6th to the 12th is National Library Week. And it's for all libraries in the nation, public school libraries and others. It's an annual celebration highlighting the valuable role libraries and library professionals play in transforming lives and strengthening our communities. And this theme this year was drawn to the library and emphasizes the library has things for everything. They have nonfiction, you learn how to draw. They have fiction and science fiction and just whatever you want. And so thank you to the librarians who work in our schools and support the curriculum and the growth of our students to become readers. And this is kind of for the parents, if any parents are listening. There's and many websites, but the one I'm quoting is from Reading Partners. I always have to give my source here. Students usually spend grades 1 through 3 learning the alphabet, letter signs, word combinations, and other basic reading skills. However, once students enter 4th grade, their focus shifts from learning to read to reading to learn. And the basic reading skills become vital for continued learning in other subjects like history, math, science. Without these foundational skills, students are unable to keep up with their peers and continue to fall farther and farther behind. Studies have shown that students who cannot read at grade level by the start of 4th grade are 4 times less likely to graduate from high school on time with their grade level peers. It's a startling statistic that shows the weight that early education carries for a child's future success. So I encourage every parent, grandparent, anybody who has contact with younger children, to partner with the school district and read to your child regularly. I also ask your child to read to you. This habit of reading together does not stop as children grow older. Reading aloud together or reading the same book and discussing it are ways to encourage children to read. Each school library has a wonderful selection of books in our district. Parents have access to these. They can check them out. There's also the Newberg Public Library that has a fantastic resource. These resources cost nothing to use and can bring lots of joy to every family. Remember that libraries spark creativity, fuel imagination, inspire lifelong learning, offering a space for individuals of all ages can explore new ideas and be drawn to new possibilities. So I encourage you to celebrate by reading a book. Now, on the downside, this is from the New York Times. The National Endowment of Humanities supports libraries and historical sites. Their staff was just slashed yesterday at 80%. And so this will include funding for local libraries, probably even Newberg Public Library. I don't think it has affected school libraries now, but I really want to encourage us to use the resources we have because they really do add to the success of your child.
Thank you. I'm fired up. Um, let's see, conferences this week. Like Director Byerly said, just thank you so much to everybody who is working hard. I have a big reminder on my fridge at home that we do have a full day on Thursday, conferences at night, and no school Friday, because that was a change we made post snow days. But those spring conferences are just such a valuable touch point for families and for educators. And I really appreciate just having that opportunity to touch base with my own kids' teachers. So thank you so much. Spring it's a time in school. So I encourage everyone to hang in there. There are so many awesome programs coming up this spring. But just we know that everybody is working really hard right now. Let's see. I really want to give a shout out to the principals from Mountain View Middle School and Chehalem Valley. They visited our Edwards parent group this week. So we have Edwards EVO as the parent group, and they came just as a resource to introduce themselves, specifically to 4th and 5th grade parents as we get ready to transition to middle school. And it was just great to just have time really casually to sit down and chat with them. And they mentioned that they were hoping that they would get in front of other parent groups in the district. So this is my shout out to other parent groups to please touch base with them. Because as the parent of a 5th grader, it was just great to have that time to discuss middle school as we get ready for that transition. And it's really good to see that cooperation and communication and collaboration between our elementary admins and our middle school admins, and the counseling team, because they're a big piece of that as well. I'm really looking forward to the budget committee session next week on the 15th. I know that I've been bugging Nate with questions, so I just appreciate how much you are working on that and how communicative you have been. It's been very helpful. And I also, my other shout out to Edwards Volunteer Organization for that gym climbing equipment. We are so excited about that, and that is a huge, that was funded through our mini grant program through EVO. So just really excited for that piece of equipment for our kiddos down at Edwards. Let's see if there's anything else on my list. I will be reaching out to our local, our state legislators or legislators. I really encourage as many people as possible to do that. The more voices, the better. And I too am keeping my eyes on all of our federally funded programs and grants and just bugging Nate weekly with my questions about that. But I think, we have many eyes. I think this budget season, like I've said before, we have a lot of eyes on us on this budget season, regardless of what is happening at the state and federal level. And that has complicated things. So I just very much appreciate the work that is being done here, our budget committee members, and look forward to continuing that process next week.
Well, I don't know if I have a list to say, but I will have to reflect on what James and Aubrey have said about kids. My high schooler is no longer a high schooler. She finished last trimester, so I don't have to worry about conferences. She also turned 18, so we have no more minors under our wings. So I don't know. So we're excited about graduation and some of those things to do there. Again, appreciate the information about all the integrated plans, Jillian and Holly. It's always amazing to see those leaps and bounds. Love green. Don't like yellow or red, but green's always awesome. And more green, please. So, and it's just always good to hear about movement for like policies. I'm glad to finally get back on board in that. There's a big pause. That's a hefty number of 530, but I think we can tackle it. So, no, it's just we're doing good work, and I think we just need to keep the train going. So, thank you.
I do have to say one thing from this meeting that was interesting is seeing the list of all the bond things, which I've probably seen at two or three meetings now, but it's always interesting because these are things that I see here, and then I go out to school and I actually see them happening, which is really nice. Especially the new drapes in the theater building. It was great to walk in there and just see like all the old ones in a big old pile on one side of the stage, and it's shiny and new. I'm right next to the construction between E and F building, actually. I have a class next to there, so I just see people moving big things of wood. Lots of supports. It's all fenced off. It is kind of fun to see things happen, though. In the theater world, Newberg Theater, we had our state thespian conference in Salem this past week. So that was Thursday afternoon and all of Friday and all of Saturday in downtown Salem at the convention center. So got to see some really amazing performances. Saw 2 musicals put on by Oregon high schools, but it's pretty amazing. Very cool experience. I'm happy that we are able to go down to Salem and just see some like the best of the best performances in schools. And more locally here, yesterday we started rehearsal for the junior version because it's shorter of Guys and Dolls. So yeah, it's one of my favorite musicals. And this version it's a little shortened, but we typically do that for our last musical of the year, and it should be a lot of fun. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
I do have a list of things today. So, spring break, the Newberg FFA attended the Oregon FFA State Convention, and our farm business management team placed 12th in the state, which is super exciting. Our chapter scrapbook got a silver award, so like a second place ranking, and we put a lot of work into that and a lot of effort into having a chapter book this year, so we really had fun with that. And then I received my Oregon FFA state degree, which was like a huge goal I had, and I'm really excited that I received that. And then I also went over to University of Idaho and committed and selected all of my classes for agriculture economics, so I'm really excited for that. And then let's see. Oh, I did the Joanne Austin Ag Literacy Night, and I had a blast working with the little kids and like getting them their bags so they could go pick out their books, and it was so fun. And I can't wait to do more volunteer activities like that till the end of the year. And then today we had our CDE day for the FFA in the district, and our advanced and beginning floriculture teams placed, our advanced nursery team placed, and our advanced poultry judging team placed. So we're going to be heading to state for floriculture and poultry, and I'm really excited because I'm on both of those teams. So, and then lastly, our largest fundraiser for the horticulture department is our plant sale. So our plant sale is coming up the weekend before Mother's Day, I'm pretty sure, but you can always look on the horticulture department's Facebook page and our Newberg FFA Instagram. We have all of the dates on there and what we have. Because we've had like really good heat and water the whole growing season, we've had a lot of success. We're going to have a whole bunch of hanging baskets, so many vegetables and herbs. So I definitely recommend checking that out.
Well, if nothing else, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Good night.